I could not be born in Spain, and I could not go to a Spanish university, so I cannot speak Spanish. I'm very sorry. When a person moves into another culture, it's usually moving into an ecosystem of very different sound, that's language, and very different color system, visual arts. And I went to, yesterday, the National Museum of Thyssen and fully discovered that it is very contrasting to Himalayan visual arts. I was also very happy to discover through my experience yesterday that you have a very different sense of timing, and the lunch can go on from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock or so. I very much appreciate that. In Bhutan, the per day expenditure of time, daily time, on meal eating is national average is 87 minutes. I think you outdo Bhutanese people in that also. Very nice. Talking about ecosystem, I think I would like to touch in the context of today's conference on 2 ecosystems, because I think it is appropriate for the conference theme. One is the ecosystem of technology of living, and other is the ecosystem of art and science of governance and living. And the ecosystem of technology of living, I mean really the question of carbon dependence, decarbonization, carbon neutrality, and so on and so forth, because that is at the basis of our present development. And by ecosystem of governance for the arts and science of living, I mean governance ecosystem, which creates possibilities and opportunities for individuals to be much more fulfilling, happier, and in a deep way, not in a pleasure way, but in the sense of happiness and contentment. So I thought I will touch on these 2 things from the perspective of Bhutanese experience. First, the ecosystem of technology of living, and this is related to the question of happiness, because if the technology of living is finally going to be cause cosmic catastrophic damage, that's obviously something which in need of revision. In the case of Bhutan, because of the early stage of development, there is a genuine chance for the country to leapfrog directly into very low carbon or carbon neutral economy. At the moment, it is a carbon negative country, and the possibility for free hand development, that is because we are not dependent so much on technologies which use fossil fuel, and habits which depend so much on high energy, which is dependent on fossil fuel, there is a genuine chance. And the modeling that modeling that the Bhutanese has carried out in collaboration with Japanese International Institute of Environmental Science shows that in the business as usual scenario, Bhutan will become carbon sort of positive by 2050. But if we take countermeasures, then it can remain carbon negative also beyond 2050. The main thing that is that will tip Bhutan towards carbon negative is the petrol diesel use in transportation sector, which will grow by about 5 times. But if you take the countermeasure and choose technologies which are energy efficient, which uses clean energy, etc., then there is a genuine chance for it to remain, with these countermeasures, for it to remain carbon negative. The main contribution to carbon negative in Bhutan, even in 2050, will remain forest management. It will contribute by about 58% carbon reduction. And that's possible because Bhutan has taken it's a small country, as you know, but it has taken extraordinary burden of conservation because 51% of the country is devoted to national parks in order to, of course, preserve biodiversity. And 71% of the country is under forest coverage. So I think in brief, I would like to say that with the combination of technology, good habits, it would be able to remain committed to the pledge of carbon neutrality. But the other ecosystem is a little more important, in my opinion, equally important, and that is based on the idea that the governance must recognize the fundamental aspiration of all human beings and animals. I mention animal because physiologically, neurologically, and in evolutionary terms, there's not much distinction as regards aspiration for happiness and well-being between animals and human beings. But if the basic aspiration of human beings and other similar sentient beings like mammals is for well-being and happiness, to experience well-being and happiness always, then the key institutions that frame the setting for everybody, the setting means the legislation and institutions, must reflect this fundamental value. This is the main argument. And I think if you look in the past, probably it has not done that directly. It has done it indirectly, but not directly. So we have to change the design of the institutions and laws, programs and plans in order to favor the likelihood of success for individual to attain happiness and well-being. As you know, setting is very important. The institution, the relationship, macro relationship is very important, and this is prior to the individuals or units or members. There is a saying in Bhutanese that if you are born on a golden mountain, then your behavior is also golden. But if you're born on a toxic mountain, then the animals that live on that toxic mountain is also so. So the institutional setting is very, very important in my opinion. And that is why the recognition and the placement of this key value, happiness and well-being, in governance is utterly important. New design, institutional design, and ecosystem. This is what Bhutanese people, under the inspiration of the fourth king of Bhutan, has been trying since 1980s. Of course, in terms of governance, as you know, as all of you, very important leaders, very important, who has led nations, led big businesses, led multinational corporations, etc., knows as soon as you go into that sort of thing, you need key instruments, you need indicators, you need management rules, you need bureaucratic norms, you need decision-making tools, which is, because it is now focus on happiness, you need to change the decision-making norms cannot be any longer cost-benefit analysis. It can be rate of return. It has to be a different type. So, and these rules must be applied in policy making, in public investment programs. We must also have indicators which fixes our navigation towards the future, and we must have bench lines that kind of tells us where the population is with respect to happiness by age, by occupation, by gender, by geography, and so on and so forth, so that policy can be targeted to resolve the issue of who are the unhappy people, where are they, and why are they unhappy? Why are they? The most important thing is to have a scientific understanding of the causes of unhappiness, and then build skills in the people, psychological skill, healthy skills, social skills that orient them towards behavior and thoughts and actions towards happiness. And lastly, sort of as a society, recognize that there are extraordinary benefits and fruits of approach based on happiness. So this is what is the experiment going on in Bhutan. I think I ran out of my time, 10 minutes. I like to check. Is it over? I was given quota of 10 minutes. So nobody is stopping me, so I think. Do I have 5 minutes, or shall I stop here?
You have 1 or 2 more minutes, please.
Okay, I have 1 or 2 more minutes. I think the context of leadership, which must address itself, was painted, portrayed very well, deeply movingly by Professor Bernardo. I think I just like to add that not only the idea of agenda and goal globally we must have amongst the leaders, but we must have capacities also. And I like to end that amongst the capacities of leaders in Buddhist literature, if you reduce it on and on and on, you come to 3 drops of qualities you need. And one of them is, of course, strength. You need endurance, patience, endless tolerance. That's one set of qualities. The second set of qualities is knowledge of various things. But the most important knowledge is knowledge of the suffering of other beings. That means you have to have a huge amount of intersubjective imagination. Otherwise, you are not going to know what is the suffering of the other. That's the most important quality of a leader. Other kind of knowledge you can make your workers find out for you. But the knowledge of the resolution of suffering is a key one. Of course, that has to be combined with the third element of a leader's quality, and that is not empathy, because empathy will run you out after some time, drain you out, but regenerative compassion and care. Without compassion and care, knowledge and strength alone may not be sufficient. I like to end that we also devote time not only on cognitive things, but also developing this kind of emotional capacities. Thank you very much.